relief to see if you qualify and get this free information by dialing 800-924-7415. If you have unfiled tax returns or cannot afford to pay your personal or business-backed taxes, you can now get the help you need. One simple phone call can resolve your tax problem and save you thousands of dollars. To see if you qualify and to get this important free information, call 800-924-7415. 800-924-7415. 800-924-7415.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay. Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. So you ordered a new air filter for your car. You try to install it, but it doesn't fit. So you take a little bit off the sides. Well, still doesn't fit? Well, you could try to sit on it. Or get it right the first time with eBay Guaranteed Fit. When you see the check, you know that part's going to fit. Air filters, brakes, headlights, over 122 million parts. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors, let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
This is Frank Calamari for Calvary Hospital. No other hospital in the world can provide the end-of-life care that Calvary can. Call us at 718-518-2000 or visit calvaryhospital.org. Thank you.
CBS News Time, 7:42 on drive time. Israel's parliament has approved a plan to take away most of the Supreme Court's power. It's the first stage of a judicial overhaul plan that has seen strong opposition for months now in Israel. CBS News correspondent Robert Berger spoke on the record with Steve Scott from Jerusalem this afternoon. So tell us about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan. It seems like it would essentially neuter the Supreme Court. Well, partially. This is the first stage of even a bigger plan, but it basically does limit the powers of the Supreme Court to declare decisions of the government unreasonable. Let's say they decide to appoint somebody, or they make some kind of decision that the Supreme Court thought is unreasonable. They could challenge it, but now they can't anymore. So critics are saying that this basically limits the power of the Supreme Court and gives the government too much power without any checks and balances. Has the Prime Minister said why he wants to do this? Well, the people in his government basically say, and they also, but it seems like he's kind of being dragged along by the extremists in his government. They feel that the Supreme Court has too much power and that the government doesn't have enough. But we've had these mass protests on the streets because people fear that Israel is moving toward authoritarian rule and even dictatorship. You know, it sounds a little extreme, the term dictatorship, but if you talk to protesters, that's what they say. Well, I was going to ask, would this plan go a step toward giving the Prime Minister and his coalition basically all-encompassing power? Originally, the plan was going to be that Parliament could overturn a decision of the Supreme Court. And of course, the government has a majority in Parliament, which basically means they would have unlimited power. Now, Netanyahu says he's dropped that part of the plan. So, but this first law that was passed today, I think, limits the Supreme Court somewhat. The question is, what happens from here? Will they go ahead and further with this plan, or is that going to be enough because of the mass protests that we're seeing on the streets, as well as the military? Now, we understand there was quite a scene in Parliament today. Paint the picture for us, Robert. What happened? Well, basically parliamentarians, Knesset members shouting at each other, which isn't really so unusual in Israel, but you also had Netanyahu sitting between two members of the Knesset. One, Yariv Levin, who is the architect of this law, the other, the defense minister. And the defense minister was saying, let's do something to reach a compromise. And Levine was saying, the architect of this was saying, no, and Netanyahu was sitting in the middle. kind of not saying anything, and so the commentators were asking, who's actually prime minister here?
You mentioned protests. Tell us about the reaction across Israel.
Well, you know, for the past 6 months, we've had tens of thousands of people on the streets, once or twice a week, protesting this judicial reform. And as we speak right now, a lot of people out on the streets here in Jerusalem as well as in Tel Aviv. And this is a very strong protest movement, which I expect will continue and maybe even get stronger. And that's the pressure now, because the Parliament has gone ahead and passed this bill. The opposition and the grassroots people that are involved in this, which includes just people across the Israeli political spectrum, are going to try and stop it through protests on the street, and they're going to also try and challenge it in the Supreme Court.
Now, could this possibly threaten the Prime Minister's coalition government?
Well, see, now that there's a feeling that maybe Netanyahu wasn't very comfortable going ahead with this law. You know, it's been publicly criticized by the United States and President Biden. He